This week, through a true childhood story about burnt cookies, we expose a dilemma facing most relationships, marriages, and families, whether they know it or not. And later, some couples make sex transactional in their relationships. Welcome to the talking phase. Hello, and welcome to the Talking Phase podcast. My name is Tom, and I am joined by my amazing, funny, beautiful co-host, Pam. Pam, what's going on?
So much, but I just wanted to say that every week I get a new adjective, and so I'm really excited for 8 to 10 weeks from now to see what you come up with. But I am doing great today, Tom. It is another scorcher in North Carolina, and so I spent it running around doing some errands and just looking forward to this moment today.
This very moment.
This moment.
What do you have going on this week besides being hot and errands?
Well, it's going to get hotter before it gets cooler because we are heading to the beach early on Friday. I am going with my daughter and her boyfriend and two girlfriends, and one of them is also bringing a boyfriend. So we have my friend and I, and then two couples getting the nice bedrooms, and we get the kind of mid bedrooms. But our condo does overlook the ocean, so I will not be complaining, and I will be spending 3 days looking at the ocean again. No complaints about that. It's going to be hot, but I think this is probably our last trip to the beach this summer. So I'm going to enjoy every moment of that before we get back and have to start looking forward to bigger trips later.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I've got my brother used to make fun of me because I loved going to the beach. And I used to live down in Florida and I got lots of beach time. And he said, I just don't understand why people like to sit on hot dirt.
Well, and he's not wrong because when I see people that don't have a beach chair laying on the towel and the sand's kind of blowing on them, I'm always like, God, get a chair. I don't like to lay on the sand.
You poor person.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to say that, but I was thinking you can get a really cheap chair for $10 or $20. But yeah, I definitely relate to the not wanting to lay on the hot sand when I'm at the beach.
Yep. Well, okay then. So what else is going on?
What else is going on? Well, when we get back from the beach, my daughter and I head to Europe the last day of August. So we'll have about, 3 weeks and a few days before we finally get to travel abroad. My daughter and I have an Instagram page. We have a TikTok page too, but it doesn't have a very big following. But we have an Instagram page called Mother and Daughter Abroad. And we try to get out of the country as much as possible, but at least once a year. And she runs that page. She is amazing. She does this for a living for another company, but she is muy talented when it comes to running this Mother and Daughter Abroad page. And I look forward to going with her and getting out of the country with her.
Awesome.
Just us, no boys, just the ladies going.
Muy talented.
Muy talented. I don't know the word for talent in Spanish, so you got talented.
Yeah, I don't know what it is either. I have to think about it.
But anyway, if you don't already follow Mother and Daughter Abroad on Instagram, we would love it if you head over there. There's tons of bikini pictures. So if you don't know what we look like, you can see us scantily clad. You can see us exploring every country. It's worth it. Just jump over to Instagram and check us out. Follow us.
Well, right there, best advertisement ever. You can see Pam and Nikki in bikinis at Mother and Daughter Abroad on Instagram.
Wow. Nikki is only about to be 30, so I'm sure most people are running over there to see Nikki in a bikini, but I'm gonna wear one until somebody tells me to stop. So there's that.
You do you.
That's right. Can't tan it if it's covered. Right? If you're fat, you can be fat in a bikini, you can be fat in a one piece, you can wear a sarong, but you're only going to tan the parts that are exposed.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out.
Yeah. We'll talk more about being exposed at the beach on our next podcast, because that's a fun part of our upcoming trip too.
Oh, well, okay then.
We're going to be naked the whole time.
Oh.
That's not it. We have to wait to find out what it is.
Okay.
Something to look forward to. What's going on with you? Anything exciting happening over in Atlanta?
Well, I'm back in Atlanta. Brian and I just spent 3 days in Nashville at a trade show. So, Brian, you're on.
I'm on, and I'm bikiniless. Sorry, guys.
That's disappointing.
Wait, hold on. Naked?
You be the judge.
Okay.
Stop flirting. Stop flirting, you guys.
There's a reason Brian's not on camera.
Because he's naked.
That's right. So no, Brian and I spent the last 3 days. Like I joke around with about 1,000 of our closest friends. We gave away a custom Damascus steel knife set, which was really a cool set. Met a lot of really cool people. We have to decide if we're going to put pics on our social media, or if we, want to throw a couple of them in the feed. Brian, should we put a couple of the pics in this feed?
I think we should. I think we probably should, Tom, because I've heard a lot of folks in the comments who are like, "What's Brian look like? Is he a real person?" Stuff like that. So just to prove I'm not AI, that would be good.
Why don't you also send me a few pictures and I can put them up on our Instagram page? For people who, most people are Instagram savvy, and Talking Phase podcast has an Instagram page and a Facebook page. So I can throw them up on the more static pages that like pictures still, and everybody can see you guys in your glory in Nashville.
Yeah, and we'll have to decide if we want to pixelate Brian's face just to keep him a mystery.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe for now. Maybe we're
really embracing this Wilson from Home Improvement vibe, huh?
Yep. It's not a terrible idea.
I think it's funny.
And he'll be naked, so we don't really want that out there. Maybe actually he's 6'5". Maybe we do want that out there.
That's true.
You know what? I bet most people don't know that Brian is 6'5". I don't think he has blue eyes, and he's not in finance, but
I used to have blue eyes. Now I have hazel eyes. Sorry.
Well,
sorry.
Close
Canada.
Hey,
no, that's my borderline. Yeah. So I grew up in northern New York. So I actually lived, like, not even kidding, 2 minutes from Canada. So we used to go to Canada all the time. And by the way, the best Chinese food you will ever have in your life is at a restaurant called The New Yorker in Canada.
Sometimes you got to go far to get that best food close to home.
The first time I ever traveled to the Philippines happened to be Super Bowl Sunday, but they're 15 hours ahead, so it was Monday morning. So I was opening the country for this company I worked for, and so we had a Super Bowl party that started at 6 a.m. at an Irish pub in downtown Manila, Philippines. It was the most international party I've ever thrown, and it was so crazy because the only feed we could get of the Super Bowl was from Australia, so the announcers were for us. They had this Australian accent, and we're eating this pancakes and stuff, and it was crazy.
Those were the diehard football fans that found the game, even in other countries.
Yep, we had like 80 people there. It was a great party. Well, okay, Brian, anything exciting going on that you want to share before we jump right in?
No, I'm just really excited to be here with two of my favorite people.
Oh, well, we're so excited to hear you here.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. And by the way, I just need to call out, by the way, Pam.
Yes.
You look incredible. This is the clearest you've looked on the Talking Face. Did you get a new camera?
Yeah, I did get a new camera. I thought you were just giving me a nice compliment because I did my makeup for the podcast. But yes, I did get a new camera. It came very quickly and with the professional installation, and I'm looking right at it. It's very hard. Now I have to look up instead of down because my camera is in a different place. But as long as you like it, Brian, that is all that matters to me.
That's what matters. That's right.
I'm winking at you, Brian. Can you see me?
Woo. Are you flirting with my boyfriend, Pam?
I can.
Well, I feel like now that I know he's 6'5", he's fair game. Oh,
and naked.
Right. And well, that goes without saying.
Well, I'll tell you what, now that we've had a little fun with that, I want to get into today's topic. And I think we should tell a story. I'm going to tell a story that happened to me when I was a kid to introduce the topic. And I've told this story on a couple of TikTok lives. And I think that this story, it's an analogy. It's the story itself is not the lesson, but there is a lesson to be learned. So this is the way it goes. When I was a kid, my mom was the saint in the neighborhood who made cookies for the whole neighborhood. She didn't, she would take out this giant bowl and make a huge batch of cookie dough. But she had a shitty oven and a shitty pan, and And so when she would cook the cookies, and she'd cook 6 or 8 of them on the tray or whatever you call that, the cookie sheet, and there were always 3 or 4 of them around the edges that got burnt. And so when the cookies would come out of the oven, she would wait, let them cool for a minute, and then she would take the burnt ones and stick them in a pile, and take the good ones and stick them in another pile to cool. And then once they were cooled, she would take the good cookies, put them on a plate, wrap them in cellophane, and hand like a plate to me and say, all right, Tom, take this over to the Schultz's house or to the Mortenson's house or, whatever around the neighborhood. And, we'd all be running around the neighborhood delivering the good cookies. And the treat that we would receive, our reward, was that we would get the burnt cookies. All the kids, we would sit around and be excited that we got to eat the burnt cookies.
Oh.
And I remember I was like 10 or 11 years old, and I went over to my friend's house, the twins who lived next door. We were best friends, and their mom, Louise, made cookies for us, and they weren't burnt. And it was literally the first time that I realized that cookies weren't supposed to have a slightly charred flavor to them.
Your neighbors ruined everything.
Yeah. No, I loved it was weird to me that cookies didn't taste a little bit burned. And so what does this have to do with relationships? Well, I'm glad you asked.
You're welcome.
So basically the question that I, as I got older, I don't resent my mother or anything like this, but my mom gave the people outside of our home the best cookies and saved the shitty cookies for the people she loved the most. And so if we replace the cookie analogy with anything else, our attitude, our happiness, or our looks, and we say, why do we reserve the best of us for the people who we love the least, and the worst of us for the people that we love the most, like our partner, our spouse, or our kids, or whatever? So that's the question. And so I wanted to ask you, first off, I wanted to tell the story, and I wanted to ask you about it. What are your thoughts about why? And we all tend to do it. I'm not throwing my mom under the bus. I'm just using that as an analogy.
Especially because originally when you were telling the story, you guys were so excited about getting the burnt cookies. So I didn't think that I would never have thought you were saying mean things about your mom at all.
Yeah. So why do you think that is? Why do we do that?
I think part of it comes down to exhaustion and comfort. And, when you tell a story like that, and I think about it, and I try to think about it in terms of my own life, whether it's my kids or my spouse or, somebody that I've been in a relationship with, I think that it's unfortunate that most of the time we're putting on our happiest face, even when we don't feel happy. That term fake it till you make it comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
We are doing our best to get other people to think that we're okay, that we're happy, that we're having a good time, that we enjoy our life, that we enjoy our job. And then when we come home, a lot of times you let that facade, that mask comes off, and you're exhausted from pretending that you were happy all day, laughing and having a good time. And now you're home with the people who maybe have lower expectations, whether they should or not. Maybe they have lower expectations of what they're going to get from you or from me or from anybody. And so, yeah, we have to be on our best behavior when we're out, when we're around virtual strangers or coworkers. But when we're home, we're just comfortable. And I guess as unfortunate as that is, it's probably natural for most people.
Well, I think it is natural, and personally, I think it's a shame. And again, I do it. I'm not. Again, I hope no one out there is going, well, does Tom think he's better than me? The answer is no, because I've done it. We all do it. We tend to give people outside of our home the best of us and literally save the worst of us for the people inside our own home. And I say the worst of us, and maybe that's not the right way to say it, but it's
the tired us, the part of us that is exhausted, that when we walk in the door. And when you were saying that, I was thinking, you know what? I don't think that this would have applied to my kids. Like, I think that maybe if I think about my parents, it might have applied to my parents where I was concerned. But I think that when it comes to me and when it comes to my kids, I feel like they didn't suffer that. If I had had a really, really shitty day and I came home and my kids needed something, for the most part, I was still putting on that happy face. I didn't want them to see that side of me. That probably, and I say probably, but definitely did not extend to my spouse, who absolutely got whatever I was actually feeling, for better or worse, whether it's fair or not. I was completely comfortable. And so by the time you've been out of the house all day getting stuff done, and then you're dealing with the kids and feeding them and making sure that they have everything that they need, by the time you get to your spouse or your significant other, you're wiped out, and they are definitely not getting the best of you anymore.
Yeah. Well, I remember when about 20 plus years ago, probably 22, 23 years ago, I took a job. I got a new job, and it was about a 45-minute drive from our home. And I had these little kids, and and I have I work in a fairly high stress world. I love my job, so it's not like I sit here and complain about it, but it is, it can be stressful. And so when I would be driving home, and I would just listen to music or the news even, or just whatever, it's just quiet time. It was just Tom time. And by the time I got home, I was ready to put on the smile again. I was ready to be on again. But my wife, my now ex-wife, this is wife number one from literally 20 several years ago. Anyway, she suggested that it would save us time and save gas and save everything if we moved. And so we bought a house that was literally 5 minutes away from my new office and moved out there. And so the theory was great, but then I would leave work and I'm home 5 minutes later. I did not have that Tom time to decompress. And so when I got home, all of a sudden I've got two little babies, two 6-month-old twins, and she needed a rest. And so instead of getting time for me to decompress, I was expected to give her time to decompress. And so neither of us got a chance to decompress. And so I gave her, I used to be able to give her the best of me because I had that time.
Right.
But then all of a sudden that time to decompress was taken away, I agreed to be, I didn't realize how important that time was to me. And so all of a sudden I'm spending, instead of a 45-minute decompression time, it took me 2 or 3 hours. And by then it was time to go to bed. And so we did not do well with that because I was giving her the worst of me.
Well, you use the word decompress. Do you think that as a society, we have built time to decompress into our everyday life? Or is the problem and is the reason that we do not have anything left to give by the time we get home? And listen, I actually haven't even ever worked like a 9-to-5 job. I've always worked for myself. So in my scenario, I never really had a struggle finding that time to decompress, whether it was in between clients or whether it was I finished up that day at 3 in the afternoon. My ex, at the same time was working probably 10 to 12 hours a day. And when he came home, he was really, really tired. And, I think that if I look back into the beginning of the relationship, he was working those same kind of hours, mostly, late nights and weekends. But my expectation of him when he got home was, far lower, because I knew he had just been out of the house, slaving. He worked, a hard job. He was on his feet all the time. And so in the beginning of the relationship, I was very understanding of the fact that he wasn't going to have much left by the time he got home at like 10 or 11 p.m. to help me with a baby that was up all night or something like that. But, in thinking about the whole theory, my real question to you would be, do we only start to give our significant other, our, if you're in a relationship, whether you're married or just dating somebody or living with them, do you find that you're able to give that person more in the beginning of the relationship when it's still new and exciting and you only want to show your best foot forward, just like you do when you're at work or, around those coworkers? Is it much easier to put on that happy face for your significant other in the beginning than later years or when things get more difficult?
I think the answer to that is a clear yes, but I think there are several different reasons. Like, obviously, in the beginning, you're trying to impress and win them over and be
Right.
charming and all those other
Right.
things. But later on in life, you might just hate them. I mean, maybe hate's a strong word, but you may have. I mean, the spark may be gone.
There may be something in between, like putting your best foot forward and
Yeah.
hatred. I maybe.
Yeah, but the spark is gone, and so sometimes it's difficult to be on. And I use that phrase. You're on at
Sure.
work or you're on in a public setting, but you kind of are able to turn off when you're at home.
Right.
And we all tend to turn off. But when, like you were saying, early on in a relationship, you turn yourself on. You're on, but
Right.
then over time you turn off. Is it because you feel comfortable enough that you don't need to be on, or is it because you don't want to be on anymore?
God, I think it's both. I think that, I only have my own life to look at for this scenario. I don't know what goes on in somebody else's home. So I know I know your story, or I know my friends' stories, and I know my own story. And I know that for me, it was definitely a combination of both of those things. In the beginning, it wouldn't have mattered how tired I was. I would have still given him a shoulder massage because he had a long day. But by year 5, we were fighting more. We had a child. We were both tired, and, him needing a shoulder massage never outweighed my need for a nap or something to eat or whatever. I have often wondered, and even after hearing your story and thinking about burnt cookies, I still wonder if that is always the case. If there are couples out there or people out there who are listening to us now and thinking, I don't do that, my significant other always gets the best, even if I'm tired, because they're so happy with their significant other that they always want to give the best. And is it those of us who wound up divorced who stopped giving the things that the other person needed just because we were tired or we were bored or we weren't excited about that anymore? Things get stale. That's just life. Unless you find a way to keep them from getting stale, they're going to get stale. And with kids, they get stale maybe a little bit faster between a man and a woman. So I don't have a studio audience. Maybe, actually, maybe this is something we could ask Brian, because we kind of do have a studio audience of one.
Right.
Well, this, I mean, elephant in the room, I'm a little bit younger than you guys, but this is a story. I know.
What does that have to do with it?
It doesn't, but this is something that my wife and I have, I won't say we're going through right now, but this is just the reality of going from her and I to her and I plus one. And in this case, it's our 16-month-old. Right. And it was a huge change, right? Because when your only priority and focus is the other person, and then all of a sudden now you have a little tiny human being that needs everything from you in terms of literally anything they could possibly need: food, attention, comfort, shelter. Like, everything that baby needs is going to come from one of us. And there is something there where it's at the very least a big change and a restructuring and reprioritization. And I would say, and Tom, this is kind of when we're talking in the sales world, right? It's the low hanging fruit, like where are the easy wins? And I guess for my wife and I, it's like, where can I help the most and have the most impact, right, for the few opportunities that I really have? Because I mean, again, we all have our own responsibilities. Like, I have my job here. I work with Tom. My wife just started back to work herself. So it's like, there's only so many hours in the day. We only have 24 hours each person. So it's like, right, how are we going to delegate each hour to be the most effective, but also to make sure that we're getting what we need as a couple? And it's a very I guess the word challenging is the best word to use, because it is a challenge. Making sure that you're balancing things delicately while also trying to be the best version of yourself and all the other different areas that we had to prioritize, whether that's work, that's family, that's your relationship, whatever it may be, to be the best version of yourself at all times. It's frankly exhausting, but
Yeah.
where are those low-hanging fruit, right? And I guess for me, my low-hanging fruit are I want to make sure that I am always there to help when possible for my daughter. So I always make sure I'm there to get her up in the morning, and I always try to help put her to bed at night. I always try to do the dishes at the end of the day, and at the very least, like, just nuke whatever mess my daughter created when my wife is doing something. So like those are like for me, my low-hanging fruit, just from a dad responsibility and trying to take some off my wife's plate. That for me is like, okay, I'm trying to make sure that I'm helping, but I'm helping in ways that she sees value, and it helps take things off her plate. And I know she does the same for me. So it really is that yin and yang. And I'll get off my soapbox here, because this is not the Brian Nichols
I
show. This
thought
is the
that was
talking
great.
phase. So
No, I
Well,
think
listen, that was great. And I was thinking while you were talking that you guys sound like you have excellent communication with each other.
it's in, and you know what? It's a challenge, Pam. Like, if I'm going to be completely transparent, it's a challenge to keep that line of communication going, because the moment something happens, right? I think the knee-jerk reaction for anybody is to figure out why. And you start to think like, okay, why did this happen? And for me, I had to start just saying like, you know what? It just happened. There doesn't have to be a reason. There doesn't have to be a finger to point, or, something in the future to go through. It's just a matter of, it happened. Yes, we can work through it, but don't let it consume.
Yeah.
Especially if it's something that was beyond our control. Like, control
It
what you
is
can
what it
control, do your best, and forget the rest.
Right. No, Brian, I think that was awesome. I think a lot of people will probably get some insight from just
I'm
everything that you said.
contributing.
I mean, I know
Woo!
that you are younger than us, but like, luckily you're still married. To what I suggest to you, Brian, is that you tune into the Talking Phase podcast. And I think that it's really going to help with your, relationship and just keeping things strong. I'm kidding. You're
That's a good show, I heard too.
yeah,
we're
Top
here all-
podcast in Grenada.
that's
Yeah.
right.
it's they're probably waiting for this week's episode. Well, at the end of the day, I definitely see, the issue with the burnt cookies. And I think the only way around it is to learn how to communicate better with your significant other.
Well, it's also, if we can, like you've used the phrase, fake it till you make it. If we
Right.
can fake it to other people, we should be able to fake it to our spouse for a while, I
Right.
think. And and I'm going to probably close this topic out with one quick story that my brothers and I. So my dad was a traveling salesman. He was gone 5 days a week. And so my mom was, for all intents and purposes, like a single mom of 6 children. And 5 of them are boys. And so we're wrestling and we're throwing crap around the house. We're beating the crap out of each other. My mom is crying, because my mom always cried if anybody got hurt. And so we're just being boys, and the phone would ring. And we'd all gather around because we knew how she was going to answer it. She's yelling at us, "You guys be quiet. Be quiet right now. Tommy, quit hitting Matt." That kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, the phone would ring and she'd pick it up and she'd go, "Hello."
Phone
And-
voice.
Yes. And so it got to the point where all 5 of us, as soon as the phone would ring, we'd all gather around and she'd pick it up and all of us would go, "Hello."
Did she get mad?
She got mad, but then she would laugh, and I think she got to the point where she would hope that the phone would ring, because it stopped everything that was happening, because we'd all gather around to make fun of her. So anyway, but that to me is just another sign. Here she's yelling at us and being angry and everything, and deservedly so, by the way. And then as soon as someone from the outside, she didn't even know who it was.
Right.
Hello.
It's not a generational thing.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying, and I'm not even sure what I'm saying to everybody out there, is I guess for me, I know that my second marriage, part of what caused the demise of my first marriage was me not giving my wife and kids the best of me, because I gave it at work. And part of the demise of my second marriage, I believe, is that my second wife I met her at work. So I knew Work Trinity. That's who I kind of became friends with and fell in love with. And that was Work Trinity. But then we got married and we didn't work together. And so I got non-work Trinity. And non-work
Burnt
Trinity,
cookies.
yeah, was burnt cookies. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is not the person I thought I knew for a year and a half or 2 years. And it was just I never saw work Trinity ever. And so I never got to see or experience the Trinity that I thought I knew. And so I hope that people out there will hear this little analogy of the burnt cookies and say, am I giving my family burnt cookies or are they getting the good cookies?
And not just your family, your spouse, your boyfriend or your girlfriend. I mean, I think that everybody does this. I mean, so also there's probably a whole nother episode in there about making sure that you're with somebody long enough to know who they are when they come home from work. I mean, like you were talking about that and I was thinking about the honeymoon period, how the first year of almost any relationship, you can be always on. You can always look your best and act your best and, rub their shoulders and make their coffee and all these little things that we do when we start a relationship, that as we get more comfortable, we get more lazy about those things.
Yeah.
And so, it made me think about that burnt cookies versus, just giving your best. I mean, like most marriages, not most, but more than half of marriages are ending in divorce. And I would imagine that this is the crux of most of those failed marriages, is that people just stop feeling validated.
Yeah. Or value, yes, they stop feeling important.
Right.
Everybody else is more important than me.
Right. And that's a bad feeling. When it happened to me, I started leaving the house and leaving him home alone because he was unhappy and, he was tired after work and he didn't even want to, watch something on TV with me. And so I started to make more friends and do stuff out of the house. And that's how marriages fall apart, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
put in the time.
Put in the time, give your spouse the good cookies, give your kids the good cookies, or at least some of the good cookies.
Save some. So only maybe give your coworkers 60%.
Right. That's
70 at the very most.
I'm always, not suggesting you give your coworkers the burnt cookies.
Well, that'll probably get you fired. So
exactly.
You probably
so you
have to at least mix them in somehow. But I think it's a really good message to everybody to, if it happened to both of us, and it's probably happened to most people that are listening right now, if you're dating, if you're starting a new relationship, history tends to repeat itself unless you stop it. So
yep. Agreed.
Maybe we will help one person, and then Talking Phase podcast will have done its job.
And we could die happy.
Yes.
Okay. Well, with that, let's close out the burnt cookies discussion and let's go on and move on to a listener email.
You've got mail.
There it is.
I heard it come in. I'm excited. All right. So this is what we got today. Dear Tom and Pam, I've been in a relationship for 3 years, and recently my girlfriend has started leaving me lists of tasks to do around the house.
Wow.
It has become apparent that if I haven't completed them by the time she gets home, she is not interested in being intimate with me. She'll say, "You have time for sex, but no time to take out the garbage," and walk away.
Huh.
Those are two pretty different.
As a woman, we can run with just about anything. So,
yeah, okay.
There's a freaking dish in the sink. What, you think you're getting laid? Not a chance. All right, moving on. I lost my job a few months ago, and I spend my time looking for work. But I think she feels I'm not pulling my weight. We had a great sex life when I was working, and there were no lists. I don't understand why intimacy is tied to doing what she tells me to do, and I miss being close to her. And I love that this guy signed it, conditionally loved in Florida. Well, kudos to a man for writing in. First of all, we love that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, conditionally loved.
Yes. Did you ever get, I call them honey-do lists. I've actually probably left a couple lists in my life, but did you get some honey-do lists when you were married?
Let's just say that if I had sex for everything that I completed on my list, I would have been oversexed. Yes, there were plenty of lists, but there was not a lot of sex. So the sex in my marriages was not predicated upon completion of any tasks.
What'd she pay you with? Peanuts? Dinner?
Nothing. Burnt
Nothing.
cookies.
Oh gosh, I didn't even think about the fact that this listener male fed into burnt cookies.
Yeah, neither did I until you asked me what I got paid with.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think are they married? Oh no,
It's
they're
just a
not even.
boyfriend, or he
Gosh,
said,
and lately I've gone back to check and see if the people are married or not, because I feel like the time to catch these things is before you marry somebody. Um, and they're not married yet. I don't know. I'm really stuck on you have time for sex, but no time to take out the garbage. I'm grateful that no one has ever said that. I've never said that to anybody.
Well, and by the way, I know this is not my show, but like,
It can be.
how does that come across then to the guy in the relationship? Like, oh, so I can only have sex with you when I complete these list of chores that you've given me?
Like male
Sex
prostitution.
sex becomes a reward for doing chores versus sex being something that's magical and special between two people.
Is it still magical and special when you have an 18-month-old?
I like to think so.
That's very
Depends on what outfit I put on.
I mean, I was just thinking, one woman and two guys in this.
There's always been that schoolgirl fantasy, but I really can't fit into the dress anymore.
I think that you'll have to take the garbage out for at least 2 months to get the school.
And I don't have enough hair for the pigtails, so
And she's probably too tired to put on a costume. I mean, I think there's honeydew lists, but honeydew lists without contingencies. I have to wonder if she's not just pissed off because he's not working. And so this is kind of more like a passive aggressive attempt to say, like, listen, motherfucker, you're home all day. You're quote unquote looking for a job, but I come home and the garbage is full and there's dishes in the sink. Like, is she just basically saying, like, get it together? Help me out.
Here's my thinking on that. First off, she's right. I mean, anybody who's ever looked for a job knows that it's impossible to look for a job full time.
Right.
It takes a couple hours at most, really. So she's right. He has time to take out the garbage. So shame on him. Quite frankly, think of it this way. If they're a two-income family, and it's just what relationship of 3 years, doesn't say they have kids, right?
No, I don't think they're married.
So she may be stressed about the finances,
right?
And then she comes home and the house isn't cleaned up. I mean, this dude should be cleaning up the house. She should come home and be able to sit down and put her feet up.
He should have dinner ready for her.
Exactly. I mean, good for you that you're looking for a job. But he said she feels I'm not pulling my weight. Well, guess what, pal? You're not. But fuck her. If she's withholding sex for this, she's using sex as a tool.
She probably has a tool, so she doesn't need to worry about it.
But she's using it as a what's the word? A cudgel. I mean, she is using sex to get him to do stuff rather than expecting him to respect her and their relationship. And by doing so, she is disrespecting the relationship, in my personal opinion. I think anyone who uses sex to get what they want, first off, she's prostituting herself. This isn't male prostitution, Pam, what you were saying a minute ago. She's the one who's selling the sex for garbage.
Oh, that's true. That's a fair point. I think I was looking at this like she's frustrated because he's not working. He's not helping out around the house, and he expects, the intimacy between them to stay the same. And it sounds like she's really mad. And so the fact that she's really mad is making her not want to have sex. And, I'm not of the fuck her camp, because if I take a minute to walk in her shoes, whether you're a man or a woman, I think that if you have a really good romantic relationship and things are going great, and she said there was no problems with that before, or he said there was no problems with that before he lost his job. I mean, it sounds to me like she's just angry. And no, it's not right to hold, sex as a bargaining chip. But at the same time, I think that it's probably that she doesn't want to have sex with him when she's feeling this way. And so she's basically saying, I expect you to do more around here while you're looking for a job, whether they have sex or don't have sex. I mean, everybody's losing if they're not having sex. She's not possibly enjoying what's happening in their house. But I mean, it seems like it always comes back to why don't they just sit down and talk about it? But I also feel like they both know what's happening here.
Well, and as we always say, we're only hearing his side of it.
Right.
Maybe, maybe he's not really looking. Maybe he's holding out for, he's never made more than $25 an hour and he's holding out for a $300,000 a year job or some shit like that we don't know.
Right. But in the meantime, he should literally be, I mean, back in the day of the boomers and probably early Gen Xers, women were still staying home and
Mhm.
cooking and cleaning, and dinner was ready when the man came in the door. And maybe she's kind of a throwback to that time, and she has expectations where, listen, you're the house husband or the house boyfriend right now. So while I'm out there working and bringing in the money to pay the bills, you need to be doing everything else, and you're doing nothing.
Right. And like I said, I agree with her. If he's
Right.
if he's not at home, or I mean, if he's not working, he should be working his ass off to make sure her life is as carefree as it possibly can be, because he knows that the financial stress is going to be there. So he should remove everything else as a stressor. And that's the way I would try to work through this.
No,
But I
and
agree with you. You just, everyone that writes us these
people
notes,
conditionally loved.
yeah, conditionally loved, but everyone else that we've received messages from, sit down and have a conversation. Because if she's withholding sex, now the way he wrote it, I thought was funny. If the tasks aren't completed by the time she gets home, she's not interested in being intimate with me.
Because
Well-
she's pissed. She
well,
comes
but-
in, nothing's done. She's already mad. Her
Right,
panties
but
are
is
not
it
getting
every
wet
night?
from that.
Is he
Right.
expecting it every night?
Well,
Um,
I certainly don't know. I don't think so. I don't think anybody that's been in a 3-year relationship is expecting it every night anymore. But I think
Yeah.
she's pissed every night.
yes. Well, but it's just the way that he wrote it.
Have you ever
It-
been in a scenario like that? Because I have been in a scenario like that. Not where I was out ever I will never say I was out slaving away at a job, because I've never really done that. But I have had times where I've been in a relationship with somebody who was unemployed for a while, and we were both home, and the other person was looking for a job. And yeah, it's very trying when you go from a 2-income household to a 1-income household. So
Yeah.
I just read this as, talk to your girlfriend, find out what her expectations are, tell her you miss the intimacy with her and that you would like to get back to that. And I'm really sorry, she's probably gonna just come up with a list for you and say, these are things that have needed to be done for a long time. We were both working, we didn't have that time, but you have it now. So let's get it done. Like, what is he supposed to be doing when he's not spending those 2 hours scrolling? Is he supposed to be watching TV?
I agree with 100% of that. I'm going to add my final thought is ditto to what Pam just said, but with one caveat, and that is, find out if you've been at it for 3 years. Is she one of these people who believes sex is a transaction?
That's
Because
a great point.
if she treats sex as a transaction right now, she may treat it as a transaction later.
And you're not married yet.
Right.
So I say to my daughter all the time that the things that happen before you get married are a really good indicator of how that person's going to be as a spouse. How they fight. Like if somebody fights dirty while you're dating, they're going to fight dirty when you're married. And so those are the things that dating was invented for those people who are smart enough to take the time to really get to know somebody before they get married, and they know exactly who they're marrying.
Yeah. And by the way, being intimate, having sex, that is one of many ingredients in the closeness of a relationship. But it's a required ingredient.
Right.
It's a relationship is like baking a cake, right? I mean, all of the ingredients are important. If you take the eggs out of it, it doesn't turn into a cake. It turns
Right.
into a hockey puck. But and so this is like, call it the eggs of the relationship, the segs of the relationship. Get that?
Right.
I mean, so the relationship without sex can't be a good relationship. Well, I shouldn't say can't. Very few relationships,
Unless you're asexual.
right? Very few romantic relationships survive without sex.
Yes. As we can definitely attest to, since we're both divorced.
Right. Or at least happily. I mean, some people stay together regardless, right? But if you're trying to have a happy relationship, sex is a part of it. And just the fact that you're not working should not, to me, it all goes back to transactional. If this is the way it works with her, that she thinks that she gets to control it, if she's the gatekeeper, the arbiter of the frequency and everything else, because she decides that you're not working hard enough.
The gateway of heaven.
Yeah, that just sucks. And so anyway, that's me. I would check on that and make sure before you go any further.
Check on that. Make sure she's not going to do this later. But you know what? Even if they have a great conversation now and they work it out, I kind of think she's kind of showed her cards at this point. Once you've been left a list that you're not getting laid unless you fulfill the items on the list, you probably, I don't know. I can't even falter. I'm sure that I can remember times where I was too cranky to think about being intimate because something didn't get done that I was waiting a week or two to get done. But this isn't my story. This is his story. And so hopefully we have helped him with this. I mean, honestly, this has helped me a little bit, moving forward in my life, because I can see a little bit of myself in that email. And, it's not good to do that to anybody. So with that said, do you have anything you'd like to add, or should I give them our email address? So we would love to get your letters. We love to give advice, as you can see. So send them in to talkingphase@gmail.com. Talking Phase is with a PH, Talking Phase. And yes, Tom will now tell you that I read all of the letters.
And she loves reading them.
Yes, I do love reading them. We try to eventually get to all of the ones that aren't, my dog won't go to the bathroom outside of the house, but please keep sending them to us, and I will reply to you and let you know when we will read your letter on the podcast if we choose it. So yeah, that's it. Send them on in, talkingphase@gmail.com.
Outstanding. I think, we've talked about this before. It's funny to think people are listening to us for actual advice, because neither of us are professionals. We're not professionally trained. But someone gave me a ration of shit on TikTok the other day, saying, "Who do you think you are? Do you think you're some sort of a relationship expert?" And I didn't write back, because who gives a shit? But I thought about it and I went, well, how does one become an expert at anything?
Well, between us, I think we might be experts.
Exactly. We've had relationships where we've dated a lot. We've broken up a lot. We talk a lot. What makes one an expert? I don't know. But so we don't profess to be experts. We do profess, however, that we've had some experience, which, by the way, I think expert and experience probably has the same root word if you think about it. Anyway, with all that being said, if you've enjoyed what you have listened to or seen today, if you're watching us on YouTube, of course, please take a minute and rate and review our podcast. It really does help with the algorithm for some stupid reason. I don't understand. And if you write us a couple of words in that review, it actually bumps that rating. A rating is awesome. A rating and a review is even more awesome. It's better best.
Better best. Send it. Write something
exactly. Nice. So talk about burnt cookies. In fact, just write "love burnt cookies" or something like that. That'd be great. And then take a minute, and if you can, share this podcast with your friends and your family, your loved ones, everyone else that you know. Tell them I'm never going to give you more burnt cookies. We do new episodes every single Friday. And then Pam does a great job managing our other social media. So you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And I think, unless there's something else, I think that's it. Pam and Tom. Oh,
I was just going to say, I can't wait to get the pictures from you guys from the Nashville trip and put them up on Instagram and Facebook. So everybody will follow us there.
And by the way, if you think this is the best that Pam has ever looked and sounded on the Talking Phase, head down below and say, thanks, Tom and Brian.
Yeah, whatever. No one bought me the damn microphone or the camera.
We just
it's all on me to make myself better. I am an independent woman. All right.
That's right. And there's
Charlie.
Charlie in the background. Hey,
Needs to
Charlie.
go out.
Okay, this is Tom and Pam signing off until next Friday.
Have a great day, night, weekend, year.